Welcome to the Raw Files. Behind every closed door, there's a secret. Behind every silent face, there's a story the world wasn't meant to hear. Today, we peel back the layers of a case that defies logic and challenges the very core of human nature. Stay tuned, because the truth is never as simple as it seems. What you are about to hear are true stories, gathered from the darkest corners of the globe. Some of these cases have been closed, their mysteries tucked away in dusty archives. Others remain chillingly unsolved, leaving behind questions that time refuses to answer. But then, there are those cases where the official verdict just doesn't sit right, leaving us to wonder if justice was truly served, or if the real truth is still out there, hiding in plain sight. Today, we step into the shadows to peel back the layers of these enigmas. If you have a thirst for the truth, make sure to subscribe and join us for the journey ahead. Now, let's open the files. Imagine a quiet morning in a suburban neighborhood. The sun is just beginning to cast long shadows over a middle school gate. Students are arriving, their laughter echoing through the air, their minds focused on upcoming exams and the trivialities of youth. But as they reach the entrance of Tenohata Elementary, the laughter stops. It is replaced by a silence so heavy it feels physical. Resting atop the gate is an object that defies logic, an object that seems to have crawled out of a nightmare. It was a child's remains, left to confront the world in silence, eyes open but void of life. In his mouth, a note is wedged, a challenge written in red ink, signaling the start of a game that would bring a superpower nation to its knees. The year was 1997. The place was Kobe, Japan. For decades, Japan had prided itself on being one of the safest countries on Earth. Murder was rare, and mass violence was almost unheard of. But in the late 90s, the economic bubble had burst, and a quiet tension was simmering beneath the surface of Japanese society. Kobe, a picturesque port city nestled between mountains and sea, was the last place anyone expected a monster to emerge. The victim found at the gate was 11-year-old Yun Haza. Yun was a student in a special education class, known for being gentle and vulnerable. He had been diagnosed with developmental disabilities, making him a target for the cruelest kind of predation. On May 27th, the discovery of his remains sent a shock wave through the country. It wasn't just the act itself, it was the theatricality of it. The killer didn't want to hide. He wanted an audience. Inside Jun's mouth was a small slip of paper. The message, written in a chillingly calm tone, read, "This is the beginning of the game. Try and stop me if you can, you stupid police. I desperately want to see people die. It is a thrill to kill. A bloody judgment is needed for my years of bitterness." At the bottom, a signature was written in both Japanese and English, Sakakibara Sato. To the police, the name Sakakibara Sato sounded like a character from a dark manga. In Japanese, the kanji for saka meant alcohol, ki meant devil, and bara meant rose. The alcohol devil rose. The theatricality of the signature and the taunting letters immediately reminded investigators of the Zodiac killer who haunted San Francisco in the 1960s. It seemed the police were dealing with a sophisticated, highly intelligent psychopath who was mimicking the most famous serial killers in history. The fear in Kobe became a living thing. Parents refused to let their children walk to school. Every man in the city was looked at with suspicion. The police flooded the streets, but they were looking for a ghost. They analyzed the handwriting, searched for records of a Sakakibara, and waited for the next move. They didn't have to wait long. On June 6th, the Kobe Shinbun, a local newspaper, received a second letter. This one was longer, more erratic, and deeply resentful. The author wrote, "Now, the game begins. I am risking my life for this. If I am caught, I will be hanged, but only in killing can I find peace. Only by making them feel pain can my own pain be eased. It is the compulsory education system that made me invisible." The letter was a scathing critique of the Japanese school system. It spoke of the immense pressure, the soul-crushing competition, and the feeling of being discarded by a society that only valued academic success. But there was a strange detail in the media coverage that followed. An editor at the newspaper accidentally misread the kanji of the killer's name, calling him Onibara, the demon rose, instead of Sakakibara. This minor error triggered a furious response. A third letter arrived, dripping with indignation. The killer was offended. "From now on, if you misspell my name or ruin my mood, I will kill 3 people for every mistake. If you think I can only kill children, you are mistaken." The tone of the letters was baffling to criminal psychologists. On one hand, they were grandiose and philosophical, referencing sacred experiments. On the other hand, there was a petulance to them, a childish rage over a misspelled name. The investigators began to consider a possibility that seemed too horrifying to believe. Could they be looking for someone much younger than they originally thought? When the arrest finally came, it didn't just break the news, it broke the national psyche. The suspect, the person behind the alcohol devil rose persona, was not a cunning adult or a seasoned criminal. He was a 14-year-old boy. To protect his identity under Japanese law, the media referred to him simply as Boy A. The details of the confession were more disturbing than the letters themselves. Boy A admitted to killing Yun Haza, but he also confessed to a previous crime that had gone unsolved. In March of that same year, 10-year-old Ayaka Yamashita had been walking home when she was approached by a boy asking for directions. When she turned to help him, she was struck in the head with a hammer. She died in the hospital a week later. On that same afternoon, Boy A had also attacked another young girl with a knife, though she managed to survive. Boy A spoke of these acts with a cold, clinical detachment. He didn't describe them as crimes, but as sacred experiments conducted to see how fragile human life really was. He wrote in his diary, "Today I carried out a sacred experiment. I hit the girl with the hammer when she turned her face toward me. I think I hit her several times, but I was too excited to remember clearly." The investigation into Boy A's life revealed a profile that has since become a textbook study in adolescent psychopathy. He was a practitioner of hikikomori, a term used in Japan for social recluses who withdraw from society, spending weeks or months locked in their rooms. In his isolation, Boy A had cultivated a dark inner world. His room was filled with violent pornography and horror films, but his descent into violence had started much earlier and with smaller victims. Neighbors later recalled seeing the boy engaging in acts of extreme cruelty toward animals. He would catch stray cats and pigeons, and instead of just killing them, he would perform surgeries on them. He was practicing. He was desensitizing himself to the sight of blood and the reality of death. The warning signs were everywhere, but they were ignored. His parents had pushed him to be a top student. They saw his isolation as focus, and his quietness as discipline. They didn't see the monster growing in the bedroom next to theirs. The case of Junhase's murder was even more harrowing. Boy A had lured the boy to a hill near the school under the guise of showing him some newly caught fish. Once they were alone, he strangled Jun until he was lifeless. What followed was a series of acts so depraved that they were withheld from the public for years. Boy A did far more than take a life. What followed was a disturbing act of obsession and control. He removed what should never be taken, brought it back to his home, carefully tended to it, and lingered with it in private, treating it as part of a twisted ritual. Only later did he leave it at the school gate, not to hide the crime, but to display it. This was not chaos. It was a message. He wanted to be seen. And in doing so, he transformed a quiet city into a place of collective dread, proving to the world that he existed. The legal outcome of the case sparked a fierce debate that eventually led to a change in Japanese law. In 1997, the age of criminal responsibility in Japan was 16. Because Boy A was only 14, he could not be tried as an adult. He could not be sentenced to prison or death. Instead, he was sent to a medical reformatory school in Western Tokyo for psychiatric treatment. The public was outraged. The families of the victims felt as though the justice system had abandoned them. While their children were gone forever, their killer was being given a chance at rehabilitation, his identity protected by the state. In response to this outcry, Japan lowered the age of criminal responsibility to 14 in the year 2000. In March 2004, at the age of 21, Boy A was released from custody. The Japanese Ministry of Justice declared that he had been successfully rehabilitated. He was given a new identity and a chance to live a normal life. But the shadow of Sakakibara Seito wouldn't stay buried. In June 2015, the man also known as Boy A, now 32 years old, released an autobiography titled Zekyu, or A Song of Despair. In it, he expressed regret for his crimes and described the psychological state he was in during his youth. The book's publication was met with a storm of protest. The victims' families pleaded with bookstores not to carry it, seeing it as an attempt by a killer to profit from his atrocities. Despite the boycotts, the book became a bestseller. The controversy brought a foreign legal concept to the forefront of Japanese discussion, the Son of Sam law. Named after New York serial killer David Berkowitz, these laws are designed to prevent criminals from profiting from the publicity of their crimes. Many in Japan asked why such a law didn't exist in their country. Finally, the shroud of anonymity was pierced. A tabloid magazine, Shukan Post, published the killer's real name, Shinichiro Azuma, along with his current occupation and location. They argued that the public had a right to know who was living among them, and that the alcohol devil Rose should never be allowed to hide in the light. The story of Sakakibara Seito is more than just a crime report. It is a mirror held up to a society. It forces us to look at the pressure we place on the young, the signs of mental illness we choose to ignore, and the thin line between a quiet child and a violent predator. Jun Hase and Ayaka Yamashita were children whose futures were stolen by a boy who was himself a product of a fractured world. As we conclude this account, we are left with a haunting question. Was boyA truly a monster born of darkness, or was he a monster created by the very society that now fears him? Can a person who has committed such sacred experiments ever truly be rehabilitated, or does the shadow of the devil rose linger forever? The case of the Kobe child murders remains a dark chapter in history. What do you believe? Should a juvenile killer ever be allowed to walk free with a clean slate? Is the publication of an autobiography a form of healing, or a second assault on the victims' families? Please, share your thoughts in the comments. We are here to discuss the truth, however uncomfortable it may be. If you want to hear more deep dives into the psychology of history's most complex cases, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Until next time, stay vigilant and remember that sometimes the most dangerous paths are the ones we walk every day.